You have 29 days. I mean, I don't think we can really do much other than like select one of these options. Hitler names Bormann to be his successor. Following the recent attempt on German Führer's life by the suspected Kempeitai agent, pressure upon the Führers to name an official successor in the Reichstag has officially recognized the choice. It has been steadily building after almost a week of debate and speculation. Adolf Hitler today appeared on live television from the Reichstag and announced to the Reich that his successor would be Martin Bormann. Considering the most likely choice, the decision has been welcomed by modern and conservative elements in Germany, although the liberals and some elements of the military have expressed concern. Bormann's committed to staying the course of Nazism with only minor reform. Albert Speer, Hermann Göring, and Reinhard Heydrich have all criticized the choice being driven the Reich to an early grave. Like, what are you wanting me to do? Are you just telling me about... Yeah, I mean, there's not much we can really do about that. Just let it kind of do its own thing. We just finished our first focus. It was a 35-day one too. Like it's one of the quick ones. Counter protest in Birmingham. 1 week ago, civil rights activists held a protest in Birmingham, Alabama, that quickly developed into a riot. Now, tens of thousands of people opposed to the civil rights movement have staged a counter march, waving flags of the Confederacy, their home state, and even a few swastikas. In comparison to the previous week, the police chief didn't even bother deploying more than a few lightly equipped beat cops, several of which joined in with the protest. Furthermore, there are reports that the pro-civil rights activists attempting to flock to Birmingham to continue the movement have been driven out of the city by police and locals alike, with several would-be protesters returning home battered and bruised. With the rising violence in Birmingham and elsewhere, Vice President Kennedy has reportedly convinced President Nixon to consider federalizing the Alabama National Guard and deploying it to restore order to the state. South African plan. Apparently the country's not in crisis though, so I do appreciate that. Who are the forgotten allies? The old Entente assumes German people. I mean, is there anybody in supply areas, map modes, ideology? Is there anybody in Europe? I guess Sweden is like social democratic, and Scotland at least is liberal, and Switzerland. So I guess there's like 3 countries in Europe that maybe would side with us. I'm not too sure. I don't know. I feel like we don't have many. I mean, I guess like Mexico was in the Entente. Or the English. Norway. I don't know if Norway was the first domino. Just it's probably like the 5th. But let's go for South Africa first, because we did play a campaign as South Africa whenever Don't Surf came out a few months ago. You know, it holds a special place in our heart. Also prepared an invasion of Mexico just in case. You know, who knows what's going to happen there. Fracking Fortress, Europe. President Nixon stared at the world map projected onto the screen in the White House briefing room. At the center was America, encircled, facing the Japanese and their colonial minions to the west, and Germans and their slave empire to the east. But where the Japanese Americans had only recently escaped Armageddon's embrace in Hawaii, the Nazi Empire was fraying at the seams. Hitler grew older and more infirm by the day. No amount of clever can work and pre-recorded speeches could hide his creaking gait. His once memorizing autocracy shrunken... Orderly, shrunken into a senile rambling. Germany's moon landing was not a triumph, it was an epitaph. Secretary of Defense Melvin Laird looked to the latest CIA intelligence briefing on German Reich. It is a house of cards, Mr. President. Britain chafes under foreign occupier. Brittany already deals with us in secret, and Norwegians continue to resist decades of occupation. And their African colonies will wither on the vine without support. All held together by a man who couldn't finish a sentence without forgetting how it started, Nixon noted. When Hitler goes, his successors will fall over themselves to split the spoils like Alexander's generals did in antiquity. Laird handed over a sheaf documents from the CIA folder. It's an opportunity of a lifetime. We'll never get another chance of crippling the Nazis like this. It's time to go back to the old world. I mean, if that's the case, maybe doing the South African plan isn't the best option here. But right now, we don't actually have 50% of the vote. We have... No, we have exactly 50. It's just like tilted at a weird angle. Yeah, so it's exactly 50-50 between the NPP and the Republican Democrats. What actually national spirits do we have? Because I haven't even looked at this. We're leader of the free world. We're part of the Organization of Free Nations. We're somewhat unified. We have Jim Crow laws. The American Malaise. Probably because we lost the war. Okay, probably not great. And the last beacon of liberty. Who's actually in our faction? We have Canada. Who is this? Iceland. Some little colonies here and there. Okay, so nothing like too crazy. In defense of the stars, John Glenn stood before the assembled mass of scientists, engineers, and science enthusiasts and journalists who had already spoken to a few people and shared their frustration with NASA's situation. Talked about the experiences as an astronaut and even signed a couple of autographs. Now he needs to make a big splash. I had just been having a pleasant dream about my last mission when my good friend James Webb woke me up with the news. I was distraught, to say the least. Know that the government was giving up on the future of space travel, partially because of the thought of never going up there myself again is saddening to consider, but that's not the only reason. By ending our involvement in space, President Nixon has given up that he has accepted stagnation and decline, abandoning his stars to the fascist powers. He says we lost the space race, but as long as the stars still shine, it will never be lost. I implore that the President reconsider his options, and the future of America and the human species as a whole lies above us. About 20 minutes later, Glenn made the closing remarks. He greeted with ravenous applause. He felt satisfied with his words had hit their mark, and with so many journalists in attendance, tomorrow's paper will carry them further still. Yet he still felt defeated. His words alone would not be enough to save NASA. If American space travel was to be the future, it would need to be the voice represented in the halls of power. John Glenn had never been one for politics, but as he thought of it, he realized that a political office may be best course of action to seeing his dreams fulfilled. As he drove home, he recalled that Ohio's governorship was up for election in a few months. And he had a crazy thought, and yet, make the astronaut president. That's my plan. Does Mexico have a focus tree? No, they have absolutely nothing. They don't have, like, even generic focus trees. House divided. House divided against itself cannot stand. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the House to fall. But I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all the other. Though the institution of slavery was torn down at the end of the Civil War by the 13th Amendment, failed Reconstruction and decades of Jim Crow ensured that the issue of race would not or could not be solved. As the divides in the Republican Democratic Party grow, debates turning to fights and friends turning to enemies. Truth only became clearer and clearer. The party as it stands cannot be saved, yet there is still time to act. America must again reckon with the issue of race, be it through the words or war. We can only pray that less blood be shed this time around, or the fate of the world rest upon this newly divided house. That's fair. I understand. Yeah. Hi. Welcome to the stream. Thank you for making the pretty good mod. Getting something. So what did we actually just unlock? We unlocked. The party split, the Kennedy Plan, Civil Rights Act. Probably vetoing the Civil Rights Act, I think maybe seems like a bit of a mistake. Isolation. We're good for what we are now. That's cool content. Can't wait to see me discover it all. I can't wait to see it. A family dinner. The Durkins Building cafeteria is a common haunt for senators on a lunch break. Today they would play host to the most prestigious pair. Vice President John Fitzgerald Kennedy sat thoughtfully chewing on a turkey sandwich. Opposite him sat a smiling man who the party registry knew as his chief of staff, but who John had always known as his brother. It's been too long since we've taken the time for ourselves, said John with a smile. How are you, Bobby? Ethel still taking good care of you, I hope? Robert Francis Kennedy is laughing at the playful wink his brother gave to him. I can hardly complain about the home life, Jack. His grin faded. Still, current events haven't exactly been great for my sleep. The older Kennedy nodded sympathetically. The violence is getting worse for sure, he frowned. Nixon is being a stick in the mud about it. Isn't helping things either. Still won't endorse any legislation on the matter. Can you do something about it? As long as the president sits in the fence, things can only get worse. I'd love to, but you know how Nixon is, muttered John, idly stirring at his coffee. Knowing him, he'd probably just veto whatever we put in front of him and yell at us for defracturing party unity. This is far more important than party unity, Jack. There are millions of Americans, millions of good, honest people being cast aside for things that are far beyond their control. The longer we wait, the greater the suffering will be. Fixing his brother with an intense but encouraging look, he continued. You're the vice president. At the very least, you can use your voice in the name of those who have no voice. John was silent for a moment, then he smiled. You've always been a good man, Bobby. You're right, of course. I must act. For the vice, press play during the events. You know, that makes sense. Probably need to like turn down the game speed though. Stellar NPP campaign. Results of the most recent regional campaign has been nothing short of stellar. Okay, so the RD is doing respectable. The NPP are doing pretty good. And something was happening over here. I have... Oh, okay, that's gone now. Did they make a faction? I didn't actually see what it was. That's okay. I'm sure things in the old Soviet Union are going to be completely okay. Nothing bad could happen over there. I mean, it's already been pretty bad, but no, nothing worse can happen. I guess we probably want to put, like, some troops theoretically, like, on these two, borders here. Just in case. We'll see how that, in case Japan wants to do something a little bit, sneaky here. German spy has been arrested. According to his landlord, Joseph Greenberg was a rather unassuming fellow. He paid his rent on time, never had any noise complaints, and always helped old Miss Connors carry her groceries up the stairs. In reality, this was all a cover, something that the landlord learned when she opened Greenberg's empty apartment with the sight of a pile of surveillance equipment and folders with swastikas stamped upon them. Probably be a little bit more subtle than that. Thinking quickly, she called the police, who in turn informed that the FBI and arrested Greenberg this morning as he left for work. Joseph Greenberg was revealed to actually be Josef Hansen, an agent from the for the German Abwehr, ironically disguised as a Jewish American. His mission was to secure a job at Bell Telephone, study their communication infrastructure, and identity flaws for the installation of wiretaps and other espionage methods. As somebody who used to have Bell, I can tell you, their infrastructure, pretty shit. So don't worry, it's not going to work very well for you. Even most concerning was that his phone book had the telephone number of several local NPP politicians inside, and it seems that he was trying to contact the party's fringe elements, including the fascist agitator Francis Parker Yockey. Charges for violation of the Espionage Acts are already being brought against him, though he'll likely end up simply being deported back to Germany rather than facing the long prison term in the United States. Got our South African plan ready to go. Let's do the Kennedy plan. We'll get the Civil Rights Act passed, and hopefully that'll be okay. Oh, no, it's people going to war with each other. Okay. Which you are... It was somebody over here. Not too sure who it was. South African Tango. Secretary of State William Rogers was well familiar with the steps of South American Tango. The South African ambassador would ask vague generalities about the administration of the UFN without any real plans for common defense or tariff liberalization. The Secretary would in turn respond with vague updates on South America's application, now nearly a decade old. Let's turn it down like speed 3 while I read this, so maybe we don't get too many pop-ups. It suited both parties. South Africans want the threat of OFN membership to code the Germans, and the OFN needed to preserve the last democracy in Africa. Neither, however, wanted the German intervention, which the OFN membership could provoke. Thus, the South African Tango continued on without end. How can I help you today, Ambassador? Roger struck a neutral tone to hide his boredom. He was near certain that the response would be entirely predictable. We're doing very well, and about that OFN application would be the usual response. The Germans are making their move, Ambassador Willem Christian now declared. First off, Boer nationalists are taking the Germans. South Africa is in danger, and we need America's help. That got Roger's attention as his stomach dropped. Okay, see, maybe speed 3 is a little bit too fast. Things in South Africa are not great. The other America, as many residents of post-war Europe, often heard stories about life in a promising United States. Children listened intently as their grandparents spoke of immigrants going from rags to riches within a few years of their arrival. Seeing how the fatherland neglected to print stories about the life in the United States, citizens under the jackboot could only really rely on relatives for accurate portrayal. It was uncommon for foreigners to contemplate whether there truly is poverty in the promised land of America. Michael Harrington's novel, The Other America, debuted in bookstores across the country today. The novel discusses the issues of poverty in the United States and exposes the reader to the significant number of Americans living below the poverty line. Harrington claims that many poor residents live in social isolation and are not commonly seen by middle or upper classes. He calls for politicians to take immediate and remedial action to get rid of the country of every aspect of poverty. Critics of the novel disagree with Harrington's socialist tendencies, but most readers agree with the call to action. The book has already gained influence on a number of politicians in the capital who want to create a better country for every citizen, rich or poor. Economics are already devising ways to make education and healthcare more accessible in the country. America's biggest misconception has been debunked. The polls are updated. Science and art opinion polling had rapidly turned into one of the most important aspects of any election campaign in memory. Also, I should be doing something here, shouldn't I? Yeah, no, I completely forgot. I forgot to select option here. Let's go for the Deep South. That'll be done in soon enough. Okay. The weekly or monthly poll usually conducted by newspapers and help the organization like Gallup is used by campaigns, candidates, and general public as a way to measure the horse race that is the American election. Okay, there's now a war between those guys. By calling thousands of people across the United States, balancing political bias and location, and judging a margin of error, it can be fairly accurately determined within a few percentage points the popularity of the parties. And they ran a middle campaign. I just didn't do anything, which is completely my own fault. Have I looked at the Senate GUI? I did look at it. It's absolutely massive. Like there's how much? I have 22 political power. I'm really not getting a lot, am I? I can't select these because we don't have. $85 to 13. Okay. Close you off. We'll then go for the 1962 Civil Rights Act. Stagnation in the Senate. The Rights Act simply means that another effort on the part of this president to dominate the country by force and put into effect these uncalled for and damnable proposals that he recommended under the guise of the so-called civil rights. And I tell you, the American people from one side from the other, that had better wake up and oppose such a program. If they don't do it, the next thing will be a totalitarian state in these United States. Probably a little bit overboard there. Efforts to move any sort of civil rights legislation through the Senate have yet again met resistance with conservatives within the party. This time, however, with the filibusters and angry outbursts are delivered to a room of very different atmosphere. The popular support for the bill only growing. One staunch opposition are beginning to waver, and some NPP senators have even approached us in secret to give us their support for the bill. Many experts are now predicting that the bill now has a very real chance of passing the Senate, especially with the Vice President Kennedy's authorship. Try clicking on the top left flag. And then the icon next to... Oh, okay, no, yeah, I did not see this. Senate is controlled by the Republican Democratic Party. You guys really just went all out on this. That's what I'm getting from this. Like, it's really just... Some islands here are owned by the Japanese. Oh, okay, so apparently we still consider Hawaii to be a state. Okay. Low support. Apparently nobody likes anybody over here in Illinois. Everybody's kind of middling here. Low support for the MPP. And purple is, I'm assuming, mixed. Is there anyone who have... So Alabama's the only one with 2 NPP members. Everybody else is mostly Democrat, and some of them are mixed. Okay. The call. The Oval Office, in a rare moment of peace, lies silent. No aides stand by, no cameras are present, and no interruptions are tolerated. Not only causes such crucial news, President Richard Nixon sits at the desk anxiously signing a few inconsequential paper documents. Shooting a few expectant glances at the telephone to his right, he realizes his pile of unsigned papers has been exhausted. Just as he kicks back to chair to relax after a long day, the phone rings. He knows the caller. He knows what the reason is. The National Assembly of Guyana will soon finish voting for the National Security Act, and William Rogers will be the first to know the results. Give it to me straight, Rogers. It was a landslide, Dick. Barely more than a quarter voted down. They're afraid of Berman, Nixon muses. They should be. Now more than ever, he'll crack down on anybody who threatens the peace, political rivals, anti-segregationist, anybody and everybody. Why did we put that bastard in power anyways? The press is going to have a field day. Nixon slams the phone down, back to his cradle, laying back in his seat and rubbing the bridge of his nose. He knows that disaster looms. What's going on in Guyana? You're not in our fact. Okay. Or is it Ghana? I don't know, it's one of them. I do need to be right back, though. 1 second. No, do not scroll the map. Thank you. You're right. You're right. That is, I was looking at Guinea, not Guyana. Thank you. But can I say, not about the mod at all, but that summer is too fucking hot. That's my my point here right now. Too goddamn hot. Conversations from the streets. The two young men walked down the streets of LA, basking in the midday sun, but the topic of the conversation was distinctly gloomier. So did you hear about the Nazi spy they caught in New York? They're saying that he was trying to get in touch with Yaki, of all people. It's crazy, isn't it? He replied. I know how much they hate the Japs. Hell, who doesn't around here? But I never thought they'd get in bed with the Krauts. Spy was just reaching out to them. They didn't say nothing about them agreeing to anything, the first man continued. The two men, like plenty others in California, had their own sympathies towards the NPP. After all, everybody in LA and the Bay Area had to only live a few miles away from the humiliating reminder of 1945. And the NPP were the only ones who seemed to have any interest in getting the treaty ports back. He turned to a friend and asked, "What do you think? Was Yoki in on it or nah?" Well, I'm going to say that.